Salieri. 2. Joey 6-1.
Hey, yo, got
Let me explain if you're sort of new to YouTube. If you look for game reviewers, you're just gonna find a slew of about 1,000 gamers. Let me put it down a lane.
Okay, I get it, but why monkeys masturbating in my intro? It's like, okay, shh, it's starting. Hello, dear viewer. Well, it's been a long time since I've done an RAR. Guess I'll have to crap one out for you guys.
Did someone say crap? You know, nothing spells crap like modern nostalgia critic.
Modern nostalgia critic? Wait, did he not retire?
Clearly, you haven't checked that guy with the glasses within the last 5 minutes.
But when he made the decision to retire, that was the right decision. I mean, it was the late decision, but it was the right one.
Well, you know what they call a correct decision on that guy with the glasses? Inadvertent.
Well, that tears it. This has to be done. Alright, if you know my channel well, chances are you're thinking one of two things. One, finally he's reviewing the Nostalgia Critic. Took him long enough. And back when I asked people which RAR they'd like to see the most, guess who voted for Doug? BAM!
I have no recollection of the event in question.
Or two, you're thinking, oh god, Nostalgia Critic, you are a worthless hater and all you're gonna do is shit on one of the best reviewers ever because you're a testicle enthusiast. I roll my eyes at you, you sad fat man. Actually, there's a distinct possibility you've never heard of Doug Walker or the Nostalgia Critic. I don't know whether to pat you on the back or ask you to please catch up on your internet lore. Well, for better or for worse, the Nostalgia Critic and his domain, Channel Awesome, have been around for a very long time. In internet years, they've been around an eternity. And with the recent return of Doug's show, I found it rather fitting to discuss my opinions on his work. I'd like to make it clear that there's no hatred in this video, among some, especially and in particular the That Guy with the Glasses community, and fandom at large. I'm considered a fat, evil force of douche that exists solely to destroy everything they stand for and believe in and love. Far from it. ThatGuyWithTheGlasses.com, before it became the repository for any and every schmo with a webcam and an ego to play entertainer for a day, actually used to be quite an entertaining site. And the one and only reason to check up on the site weekly was its star, and to this day the only real draw on the website, the Nostalgia Critic. Now, in the interests of complete objectivity, and so I don't incur the wrath of the average fanboy, I'd like to give fan and non-fan alike a non-biased look at the man's work in general, from his back-in-the-day stuff to his revamped, reworked, and reintroduced version of his show today. But Asa, you fat, pompous squad, you hate that guy with the glasses. You can't possibly be objective. You made billions of hate videos about Doug and ThatGuyWithTheGlasses.com. Actually, while several of the fevered egos that haunt Channel Awesome have been subjects of previous videos, off the top of my head, Angry Joe and Linkara, whom my friend AfroBlue reviewed for my channel, I never once made a video discussing Doug's work. Unless you count a video I had in my old channel, which incidentally started the whole idea that I hate everyone and everything on the site. A video about the Mashables Award in 2010, wherein I found it ludicrous that the website and its members were being nominated for each and every category simply based on their popularity, and not whether they merited a nomination or not. It was around 2010 also that I stopped enjoying Doug's work. What happened? Not hatred. Burnout is really the only word I could come up with. Doug simply stopped being the Doug that made funnies. And it is not difficult to see how things got to that point. The man had a weekly show. At first I could imagine the ideas and jokes just flocking to his head. You could see the enthusiasm back in the day. Doug clearly loved to show you his perspective on the stuff that he grew up with, and he could tell you everything in about 10 minutes or so. Then he started padding his show. They started turning into 20-minute episodes, then 30-minute episodes, even hour-long episodes. He had to try to rack his brains for more of what his viewers wanted. And then he even ran out of nostalgic movies to talk about. See, the premise of his show had always been, oh hey, here's the stuff that I watched as a kid and I loved it for X reason, or I bitterly remember this flick because of such and such. Then he started reviewing films that he clearly wasn't nostalgic for, like for example Simon Says, which he himself claims to have never seen until he was asked to review it.
But what got it going is that Allison just sort of out of nowhere, you just sent this movie. It was just like, hey, if we ever do a crossover, it should be this. And you just, I think it was just the poster of Simon Said and who was in it. I'm like, okay, yes, how's next week? And you're like, yeah, that works.
So then this pretty much violates the whole premise of his show, which was to review things that he grew up with. He remembers them so you don't have to. That's his tagline. How on earth do you remember something that you never saw, and how do you call it nostalgia if it's not something you're nostalgic for? Going back to the old days of Nostalgia Critic, another thing he used to do was summarize and comment on choice scenes in the movies he was reviewing. This resulted in quick, fun, smart, snappy videos that never overstayed their welcome and always left you wanting more. Then he decided eventually, you know what, screw that. I'm going to run you through the entire plot of the movie from first scene to last, ruin the movie for you, explain and interpret scenes for you, and try to cram a sketch based on every single last possible scene I can. So basically they stopped being witty reviews and more like tired 30-minute sketches. Does he still have the humor? Occasionally, yeah, but it's not the same mile-a-minute pace his older videos have. Now you really have to dig through the fat to get to the one or two good jokes in his videos. And most of the problem lies in the length of the show and the fact that it's no longer quick observations of the movies in general, but rather dissecting them scene by plotting scene with sketch interruptions, and of course, the memes.
But who am I to argue with running jokes, big lipped alligator moment, elephant Chuck Norris?
Oh yeah, the memes. After a few seasons of them, it seemed he could just review entire movies using nothing but. He ran some of them entirely into the ground until it became customary for him to say, no, I'm not going to do that meme, and that action in and of itself became a meme. Now, back in the day, because ThatGuyWithTheGlasses.com was still a new site and still hadn't become the conglomerate of reviewer clones that it is today, he also didn't feel obligated to pepper his reviews with cameos of people who Channel Awesome needed to plug that week. Compare Season 1, now Season 2. Okay, so here's the last 2 seasons. For crying out loud, he even had an episode featuring this thing. That could have only served to improve its viewership, not his own. Now cameos aren't special anymore. Any schmo can do a review with a great nostalgia critic. Once he gets to Robert Million, you'll pretty much know anyone can. I think the only thing keeping Doug from asking him to be in a video together with him is that he's not entirely sure Million's heart could take the excitement, and he's holding back to keep him from dying young. So back in September of 2012, it finally happened. He announced the end of his show. The man had finally had enough of having to write stuff for a weekly show, something I'm surprised he was able to endure for so many years. You gotta hand it to him. Love him or hate him, he was and is a workhorse. It was possibly the best decision he'd made regarding his site and his sanity. After all, most shows die after their 4th or 5th season. The Simpsons, I'm convinced, is being held together with duct tape and spit to keep the record going. It's been dead on the inside for years and it shows. A good show knows when it's overstayed its welcome and when it's got nothing more to say, prove, or show you. But a man's gotta eat, and when the stuff you're making isn't pleasing the fans, you gotta make more of the stuff they do like, even if it kills you to do it. Or you could fade with dignity into the sunset, and thus, the Nostalgia Critic Show returned. Which is funny that he would say this.
This episode not only has great commentary, but it's another example of keeping your eye off the prize and doing what you love simply because you love doing it. It's another great reminder to artists that if you're doing it for the money, you're doing it for the wrong reason. Considering
his decision to bring back the show that made him money. So in conclusion, Doug's work isn't as fun to watch as it used to be. Up, in my opinion. Now, I stopped watching a long time ago. That doesn't mean that he's some sort of monster that needs to be destroyed for the good of humanity. Far from it. He simply stopped being my cup of tea, so I stopped watching his stuff. Those of you who enjoy his current stuff, more power to you. However, he doesn't need all this white knighting from you. He doesn't need to be defended. I mean, he's a comedian, quite a witty one, when you're not demanding 5 years worth of weekly shit from him. I mean, anybody would suffer from burnout going as long as he did. Hell, I commend him for trying to branch out into new things. Too bad his general audiences won't allow him to, and god damn you all for not allowing him to. Anyhow, that's all I have to say about the subject. Razorfist, got anything to add to this? I'll have to go back in time 3 weeks, but let's ask him.
He dies with pineapples in his thrusters.
Till next time, dear viewer.
Yeah. Hey, Salieri. 2. Joey 6-1. Let me explain if you're sort of new to YouTube. If you look for game reviewers, you're just gonna find a slew of about 1,000 gamers. Let me put it down in layman's opinions that don't matter. They just try to climb a ladder with the same slang everyone's heard. Ain't nice examples, retro gamer. He just wants to be the nerd.